Hello everybody, welcome back to the Indescribable channel. I'm RK and we are doing another reaction video today. I wasn't planning on doing another FNAF theory reaction, but the last one did well. So I think we're gonna keep doing them. Or at least we're gonna do this one. We're gonna be reacting to Game Theory's new video. It came out today. As of recording this, you will be seeing this Saturday, or you'll be seeing this today, Saturday. And yeah, we're going to find out if the FNAF movie finally solved the timeline. I've been very open about my distaste for FNAF theories, specifically from Game Theory. I feel like I have a lot of strong opinions. And so we're going to see how I do reacting to this. Like I said in the last video at the end, I'm going to say at the beginning now, I have no hate for Tom, or the game theorists, or the FNAF theorist community. I just have a lot of strong opinions as someone that has been a fan of the franchise since the beginning, and someone that is writing a new FNAF show, which is called Day Shifted Freddy's, which you should totally check out our teaser we have for it right here. But yeah, no hate. I just have really strong opinions, and I'm going to hopefully give constructive criticism on FNAF theories specifically, but just how to go through my thought process of what I'm talking about my theories and what I am looking for into FNAF, and kind of just going through the whole debacle of the fanon versus the canon. Basically, because right now we're at a stage of FNAF, like I said, where the fandom and headcanons are the dominant facts, basically, where it's just saying, oh, well, we all assume this, there's no confirmation, there's loose evidence, but this must be true, and then anything that pokes holes in it gets immediately, oh, this isn't canon, this isn't real, like the FNAF 2 movie. And without further ado, let's get going.
The FNAF 2 movie solves the FNAF game timeline by breaking one of the fandom's most foundational theories. Man, Scott really is just a troll, isn't he? Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show whose fate is to be spring-locked inside this franchise, whatever medium it's in. Just like we see the puppet spring-locked inside Toy Chica in the FNAF 2 movie. Now, that statement might be confusing for longtime FNAF fans who, for some reason, haven't seen the second movie yet. The toy animatronics aren't spring-locks, they use Endo 02s. And up until now, you'd be right. That was our thinking. But then this movie came out, and we see the, quote, ribs of the Endo 02 acting just like the spring locks in Afton's spring Bonnie suits. That's not the only big reveal either. The movie also seems to tell us that there's only one spirit in FNAF 2, the puppets. The toys and the Wizards aren't possessed. Charlie, or Charlotte as the movie continuously calls out, is the one controlling them, and she is the only ghost in the location. So yeah, while the first movie was a pretty paint-by-numbers reimagining of the first game with some fun Easter eggs, for this second movie, Scott decided to alter his approach and gave us a movie that fundamentally changes our view of the franchise by clarifying some of the most confusing parts. And there is a lot to dive into, even with the ones I've already mentioned, so make sure you're subscribed because I will definitely be going over those in the future. However, today I wanted to focus on one detail in particular, one change that left my jaw absolutely agape in the theater when I saw it. The introduction of one of this franchise's most...
We're a minute and a half in. Great. Okay. We're gonna talk about the two things that he did mention. One with Chica, or with the toy animatronics being spring locks. I don't. Once again, I don't know. I did not write the movie. I did not write FNAF. I have no idea. Any opinions that I give are based on my opinion and from what I know of the franchise, what I know of FNAF, and what I know how this world works, basically. I don't know if the toys are spring locks. Given that we can see that it doesn't look like room for a person to fit in. and this could be just how I'm interpreting this, like even from this photo, from this one photo, you can see there's a clear endoskeleton, and there's clear the arms and the legs and stuff like that, and it doesn't look like there's, maybe there's room? There can't be some room. I can see a little bit of it, but I just feel like, I don't know. Maybe I'm completely, yeah. I have no idea. I don't think they are. I think the whole puppet thing was meant to be more of like a spooky thing, or kind of like a nod to how Lefty captures the puppet, rather than, oh, these are spring locks, which means we just retconned everything in the game, or yada yada yada, like we talked about in John FNAF's reaction video. Check it out here. I don't know. I don't think the spring locks, the toys being spring locks, make sense because they've been disbanded. They've been discontinued as before, like pre-FNAF 2 era, pre-1987. Obviously, this is a movie universe, so and given the fact that in the movie universe, the FNAF 2 location is the first Freddy's made by William Afton and stuff like that, maybe that is maybe that's just another alter, like, oh hey, the spring locks are the toys are spring lock costumes and stuff like that. I don't know. But I do want to mention how I think I'm not going to, this isn't going to be a full video about this idea, but I just want to talk about it here because I'm not going to have another chance. I think Fredbear's Family Diner still exists in the movie universe, and I think we're going to hear stuff about it in the third movie, mainly because if the toy animatronics are the first animatronics William has made for Fred, or sorry, I'm not saying that those are for sure, but from what we can see, these are the first Freddy's guys. Like, these are the first animatronics in the first Freddy's, basically. So there must be, and we know that the Yellow Rabbit costume was active or in use at the time, and visually it looks different. My thought is, could that actually be from Fredbear's Family Diner, and the Wizards were like meant to be something like that, but then Henry and William split or something like, I have no idea. I think we might see Fredbear's just because the Yellow Rabbit is a very specifically different design than the toys, which are supposed to be like the original animatronics. We'll find out. I have no idea. Let us continue.
Important characters, Michael Afton. For the longest time, we've believed that Michael Afton has been the person that we've been playing as in all of the original 6 games, going location to location, following the trail of destruction his father, William, left in his wake. And
I have since day one said no. Sorry. Once again, I've said no. Every single time this theory has come up, I've just said no. Like, I don't believe it. It does not make sense. In the movie, once again, if you saw the little crash out in the one video that we did, I was so happy that they made them separate characters, because yeah. No, I've never been a believer of this theory. No.
Trying to cleanse the world of the pain he caused. He starts in Sister Location, where he gets scooped, turned into a walking corpse, then heading on to future locations under a bunch of fake names like Mike Schmidt. He goes through FNAF 2, FNAF 1, FNAF 3, and eventually FNAF 6, where his
which, once again, I have said, Sister Location takes place after FNAF 1 and not before, and the only reason that Sister Location would take place in the timeline before FNAF 2 and 1 and all the other games would be for this Michael Afton theory. The only time it would make sense for that to happen before everything else would be for the Michael Afton theory. And once again, now with him, no Circus Baby was around in 1982, we can kind of get to see, like, oh, this is much earlier. We're getting more holes poked into the fanon timeline and what everybody wants to be true, rather than, and what everybody is telling everybody is true, rather than what is actually true.
Father, as well as all the other spirits, get cornered by Henry, and they all perish in a fire together. But then the FNAF 2 movie released, and not only were we reintroduced to Mike Schmidt, the regular old security guard from the first movie and the first game's paycheck, we were also introduced to a new character, the brother of Afton's daughter, Vanessa, Michael Afton. What now? So, Mike Schmidt wasn't a pseudonym. These two are officially being shown as separate characters.
Yes.
That is a massive change, something that totally upends what we've believed about the timeline I've mentioned. But
I got your pizza. Hut!
You should order pizza every game.
Before you...
after I came down from the shock, I took a step back and gave it a real long think. You see, something Matt and I would always do at the end of every year was reevaluate our understanding of FNAF. Wipe the slate clean and start from zero. Doing that, having that separation, allowed us to notice small details like the company changing from Inc. to LLC, which opened up a whole new path for theorizing, and that was only possible because we took that time to reset. Last year, I took a look at the knock-on effects that would happen if the books were canon. That one turned out to not be true after Secret of the Mimic released, but the point remains. So, as it's the start of a new year, I wanted to give that a go once again, to take a step back and reassess my understanding. While I and many others have been convinced that Michael and Mike are one in the same, could it be possible that they are in fact different? And if they are, would that fix things? The answer, dear theorists, is a resounding yes. It clarifies a bunch of motivations, it gives us a much cleaner order of events, and it might even help confirm a theory that's existed in the fanbase for a long time. So, sorry Lee, I let you borrow it for a bit, but I'm stealing FNAF back now because I gotta get to the bottom of this timeline for good. Let me start by clarifying something myself. Can we use the movie to solve the games at all? It's a fair thing to ask. Much like the books, these movies seem to be alternate universe reimaginings of the game's stories. We are seeing the events of FNAF 1 and 2, but key details are different. Vanessa, for example, isn't in the first few games. She's from Security Breach, and yet here she is in the first 2 movies. In this new movie, we see Charlotte dying at a Freddy's that the toy animatronics were at in 1982, but the game's version of Freddy's doesn't open until 1983. And at the end of the second movie, we also see a teaser for the third movie, where people find Springtrap to make their horror-themed attraction, which is the same as FNAF 3, but this time it's like a year into the future, rather than the 30 years into the future that the games do. They are clearly different stories, so how can we take them seriously from a lore perspective? Well, the answer lies in what I just said a few moments ago. The movies are like the books, and even though the books aren't canon, meaning they're not one for one the same story, that doesn't mean we can't use smaller parts and interpret them in order to help inform us of gaps in our knowledge, or to clarify parts of the series that the fan base has gone off course with. Scott does seem to be in his clarification era, from Secret of the Mimic to smaller Easter eggs in 5 Laps at Freddy's. It feels like he's trying to help point us in the right direction after years of theorizing. And heck, without stories like The Mimic or GGY, there's a bunch we wouldn't know about those two characters, even if they aren't in exactly the same universe. This movie isn't Scott telling us how FNAF 2 happened. He's giving us details that either fill in the gaps, like the spring locks and the Endo 02s, or he might be showing us where our theories went awry in order that we can be put on the right track again. So long as information doesn't directly contradict game facts, not theories, then it's fair game for interpretation. And
Absolutely, 100%. That is, no, once again, I'm going to be tooting my horn a lot through this episode. That's exactly what I've been saying. This whole, like, I will be completely honest. I've been getting caught in FNAF misinformation TikTok, where basically people will be like the fake news, the whole lie of like, how, we know how the children died. Bonnie went running and stuff like that. Wasn't, nowhere was that actual fact, and everybody was like freaking out about it in the comments and stuff like that. So every now and then I'll pop in and be like, hey, as far as we know, this isn't canon, yada, 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 yada. And the biggest thing with the FNAF 2 movie was everybody just shitting on it and just saying, oh, this is horrible, this is so, these aren't canon, these are useless to the lore and stuff like that. It's like, no, like the creators have been saying, this is lore accurate. And that's, once again, we need to go to the whole discussion. We're not going to go deep. We're going to go to the discussion once again. Everything that has been made, unless Scott specifically says no, everything here is canon, as in this stuff can happen in this in this mythos, this whole multiverse that we have. They're different continuities. And so, you know how, like in the Silver Eyes trilogy, the Fazbear Frights books, the movies, and the games, William Afton in the Yellow Rabbit costume will get spring-locked, die, and then like that whole thing. Like, hey, these are things that will, like, to use MCU terms, canon events. These are all canon events. So, like, things can happen. Things that happen here can happen over here. That's where MatPat went into the whole ramble of robot kids. And robot people and stuff like that, because like he was taking from the books and putting those bits into the games to try to answer some stuff. And everybody that I've seen, every forum and every like internet sphere that I have seen where we talk about that's discussed, everybody's just so against it because it just means their theories are wrong. And I don't. That annoys. That's annoying. I don't know, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how much of the FNAF community, now that game theory has said it, all of us are like, oh yeah, we can use the movies. Oh yeah. We'll see. All of you toxic FNAF fans, not the fake ones, not the real ones, because that's stupid. All the toxic ones that rather get likes and making up theories that aren't true and just hating on everybody's theories. Fuck off. Like, come on. It's have fun. This is meant to be fun. And you just shouting that theories are wrong and everything and like people are stupid and that we can't, that just hating on stuff. Like, come on. This is a game. This is fun. Have fun. Let stuff like this happen. Listen to the community that is talking to you about this stuff. I say as I did a whole video where I was just talking about how I hated the theory. Anyway, don't worry about that. Let's keep going.
Believe that this Michael thing falls into that category. Let's go back in time a bit and look at this theory of Mike being Michael and where it came from in order that we can see whether this change feels reasonable and what the knock-on effects are. Matt first brought up this idea back in the episode FNAF, The Final Theory Part 2. That was 8 years ago and definitely wasn't the final theory. Was it, Matt?
You lied to me.
Anyway, for this theory, there were 3 major pieces of evidence. Firstly, even though he calls himself Michael at the end of Sister Location,
Father, it's me, Michael.
During the game, we see the name Mike on hand units. He also used Mike in the security logbook, and when Afton perishes in Ultimate Custom Night, he also called him by this nickname. The second piece is that in FNAF 1, we play as a character called Mike Schmidt, who was fired for tampering with the animatronics and his odor. Now, not only therefore is he using the same first name, but when you're a literal walking corpse, yeah, you're probably gonna smell a bit. Fritz Smith was also fired for the same thing, leading us to believe that Michael was going location to location under fake names in order to fix everything, which...
Yes. That is one way to look at it. However, more and more with the theories and stuff like that, Scott reuses the same names all the time. We have 2 Jeremys, 2 Fritzes, and then a Cassie and a Cassidy. Yes. Yeah, no, the name is solid. The Fritz Smith and the odor thing, I'm pretty sure those were either, one, meant to be a joke, like, oh, you crapped your pants, or that you got stuffed in the suit and you are decomposing, and the smell and the odor and stuff like that. That is kind of more where I interpreted it, but like more theories are like, okay, that's one way to look at it and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's meant to more like that. Obviously, he's going to talk about it.
Ties into evidence point number 3, where at the end of Sister Location, Michael tells his father,
I'm going to come find you.
This was his main motivation. Michael was going after his father after learning the truth about what he did with the express purpose of revenge. It felt like a really solid theory and was really narratively satisfying. It explains why...
Not a solid theory, because there's plot points. It's a good theory, but it's also narratively good. I want to clarify. Solid. They use solid theory a lot of the time just to be like, oh, this really works for our narrative. Once again, I've said this billions of times, if the narrative doesn't work for the timeline, the narrative is wrong. Once again, and we're going to see why.
Security guards would work these awful, awful jobs and continue coming back night after night. It wasn't about the job, it was about the mission. There was just one tiny problem with this though, the dates. Sister Location's place in the timeline has always been vague at best, but as we pointed out in our ultimate timeline, if Michael getting scooped in the Sister Location bunker is the start of his redemptive arc, then it has to be before 1987 when FNAF 2 takes place in order for him to get fired as Fritz, which also means Michael would then go to the FNAF 1 location where the animatronics are all intact before William returns to the facility, breaks and melts them down to harvest the souls trapped inside inside, creating remnant, which he then used to create the fun times. Do you see the problem here? We're pretty sure that the fun times have souls in them. Even with this reevaluation of evidence, it still feels pretty likely. We saw that the original animatronics were melted down to create remnant in the fourth closet, which was then injected into the fun times to bring them to life. We also got lines from Candy Cadet about 5 things becoming one, the 5 children's souls being smushed together into one thing, which once Michael is scooped, they escape using his body as Ennard, and then go on to become Molten Freddy, with the 5 souls being inside one body. We even saw these spirits arguing with Elizabeth in the source code of Scott's website, revealing to us that transformation from Ennard to Molten Freddy. And more recently, people discovered that the furnace during the Ennard repair level of Help Wanted contains a bunch of Endo 01s, the same Endos used for the classic animatronics. These being melted in Ennard's level, the character who is the culmination of these souls, it seems like they might be connected. So after breaking these...
I did not know that. That is awesome. I'm really happy about that. Well done. Who did that? Who found this?
Classic animatronics. These being melted in...
User GB Aura - recharged on Reddit, I'm assuming? Well done. Man, I'm so glad we're still finding stuff about FNAF VR for lore stuff. That's not a huge lore thing, but still, that's really awesome. Nice. Yeah, also, once again, just going back, once again, he was just saying the dates don't work. If it doesn't work for the timeline, it doesn't work for the story. So,
Ennard's level, the character who is the...
Let's go back.
All have had to happen before Michael goes down to sister location and gets...
Oh, and also, technically, the fun times could have still been around, because he just has to inject them with the remnant. So to help out this little flaw, the fun times could have still existed before the remnant, but I still agree that it does not necessarily work in this way. With the narrative that they have, it doesn't work with the timeline more than just, the fun times can't exist until William makes them. Which is, that's true, but you get what I mean.
Scooped, which means Michael can't be the night guard in each location.
Oh, also, in the whole Father It's Me Michael speech, I'm going to come find you, it's ending with the FNAF 3 fire. So we know that Afton is still alive and stuff like that. But why would he... Is he referencing that the fire... So he burns down the place. So he does the call after he pukes up Ennard, goes to FNAF 3, burns the place down, and then is still looking for more Freddys? Basically,
even though we liked it, Michael being Mike was far from a clean theory. It had some good evidence for and against it, but it felt like the most narratively satisfying answer, and without much to tell us otherwise, that's what we and
I feel like that what he just said is the biggest reason why game theory specifically, but a lot of FNAF theorists have such a hard time with theories or with making sound theories. Is just because we're trying to make up a narrative instead of trying to find the one that's in there. And I feel like once we found that, we play as Mike every game, everybody hooked onto that theory and was going off of that. If that makes sense. Here, Editor Ryan, do a whole little graphic to get what I mean. It's like you're putting, it's like you have like a block on here, and then you have a longer block on here too. And then this block is like the game. This is like the actual time, like this, like confirmed facts. Then here you have your theories. What you need to do is you need to still use the facts as the structure, as the support, and build stuff in the middle, on top. But I feel like what a lot of FNAF theories have done is they've just gone to either side of the theory and built stuff on top of that, and then it just topples over once there's a little bit of movement to disrupt it. I hope that was a cool graphic, Editor Ryan. That needs to happen. Anyway.
a lot of the fan base stuck with. I mean, come on, who would use the same name multiple times? That would just make everything super confusing. Until you remember that this is the series that has so many Jeremys, it's hard to keep track.
You know,
Oh,
listen,
3
we've been
Jeremys,
doing
that's
this
right.
series for this long. Eventually, you just run out of names.
And that reality has now come to a head because we have a movie that presents these two as distinct characters. Mike Schmidt is a guy trying to provide for his family and so takes these crappy jobs because he needs the paycheck, only to discover that he has a strange connection with the place, that William Afton kidnapped and killed his brother. Michael Afton, on the other hand, is a creep. I mean, just look at that face. Great casting, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't make me like the guy. He states in the movie that he's carrying on his father's work. He's using the animatronics to kill people, luring them to the FNAF 2 location. He's meant to be our Act 3 antagonist, although whether that actually happened is kind of debatable. But regardless of how it was implemented it was, and so here we are. The movies weren't the only time this came up either. Recently, Scott released Ticket to Fun, a collection of FNAF memorabilia, including Jeremy's paycheck, a security badge, and a blacklight. By using said blacklight on the included crossword, you find the phrase, "Name Mike Schmidt." Given that outside of the movie, Scott has never brought this name back up since the first game, it feels like once again, he's drawing our attention to this name, to have us rethink how it fits. We were also recently introduced to another new night guard, Ralph, in the week before. This is the night guard who records the FNAF 1 phone calls. But despite everything leading up to this point, he loved Freddy's and was there because he wanted to provide for his daughter. As the nights go on, he gains a morbid curiosity about what's happening, and so continues to show up each night. Clearly, people in this universe are just willing to work a bad job. It doesn't have to be because of some eternal vendetta, and all of this actually solves the issue.
Wait, people in society work jobs they don't like? What? Comment below if you work at a job you don't like. Who would do that?
Issue I've been raising. With Michael being his own character, he now doesn't have to be present at all in FNAF 1 to 3. He can just be the protagonist of FNAF 4 to 6. FNAF 1 to 3 instead can be the story of Mike Schmidt. His name is on the FNAF 1 paycheck. FNAF 2 starts with Jeremy, but after getting bit at the end of night 6, is replaced with Fritz, who is fired for the same reasons as Mike. So, I'm willing to believe that these two could still be the same person, with Mike using a fake name. I mean, in the FNAF 1 movie, we saw how much Mike was struggling for work, so maybe the pseudonym is so he can get work in the first place. Plus, we did see Mike in the FNAF 2 movie only completing a single night when all the animatronics were active, just like Fritz. And then it all culminates in FNAF 3, like we're going to see in the movies, with Mike Schmidt now knowing what's going on and trying to end it all with fire. Although, ultimately, it fails because while he's learned all about Afton's crimes, he doesn't have a full understanding of everything like Remnants. I could see that being what they do if they want to make more movies, but I'll leave that kind of theorizing to Lee. This is where Michael can come in. We've suspected for a while that in FNAF 4, we're playing as Michael, not as the crying child David. Because while we see the hospital details...
I need a second. So... Game Theory, I love you guys. Y'all are awesome. What is your obsession with one person being in every single game? Why does that need to happen? Why can't they just be separate characters? Like, are they trying to rage bait us? Because the only reason that we would need someone to be the same person in every single game, to be who we plays in every single game, is for the Mike story. But once we take that Michael Afton is a separate person, we don't play as him in every game, we don't need another person. Why is this... How far are we? Okay, yeah, we're in the part where he's not gonna... We'll find out. That does not make... That's not useful information. You don't need you don't need Mike Schmidt to be who we play as in every single game. Timeline-wise, Mike would be like... He would have to be 60 in FNAF 3. And that makes more sense for us than them just being separate characters, and the reason they smell and like are tampering with animatronics is because they're stuffed inside the costumes. Why can't that be what makes sense instead of us trying
Bring us back to when David got bit. We also hear things like the FNAF 1 phone call, which the crying child likely wouldn't have heard, but a grown-up Michael working as a security guard would have. And then in Ditophobia, we learn that it's a hallucinogenic gas used in a place that is weirdly similar to the FNAF 4 house. And in that story, it's a 17-year-old who hallucinates to be 7. At the end of the story, we also hear the voice of a middle-aged man on the tapes convincing him to turn the gas back on and return to the house. Most of the community has attributed this voice to William Afton, which makes a lot of sense given what we know about FNAF 4, which then means we could connect this story to the Michael Afton we met in the movie, one who is helping his father, but maybe not fully of his own volition. He's being haunted by nightmares of animatronics, and he knows that disobeying his father will only lead to it continuing. He would then go down into the bunker following his father's orders.
I found it. It was right where you said it would be, just like you asked me to.
Which leads him to finding Baby, discovering the truth about what his father did, and
Taxes was feeling unwelcome. Now taxes?
And all of that could happen after Mike Schmidt had already been to these locations, allowing William to go back to FNAF 1, dismantle the animatronics, melt them down for remnants, and infuse them into the fun times, fixing that core timeline issue. It could even be that all of this happens after FNAF 3. Michael's big ending monologue from Sister Location, where he says, "I'm going to come find you," shows an already burnt down Fazbear's Fright, meaning that event may have already happened. Personally, I quite like that idea, because it means after a few weeks, when Michael's body decomposes, Ennard leaves, forming their new bodies as Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy, and are almost immediately drawn to the FNAF 6 location, which takes place that same year, rather than these rogue animatronics and a literal rotting corpse wandering around for several decades. I mean, Michael may be unable to die, but his corpse ain't getting any fresher. After decades, I'm not even sure how much would be left of him. But I hear you saying, how would Michael hear the FNAF 1 phone call if he's not the one working at the FNAF 1 location anymore? Well, just because he isn't the character we play as in FNAF 1 doesn't mean he isn't working there at some point. In the FNAF 2 movie, Michael is working at the original location, allowing YouTubers to come in and film the place only to perish. He also talks about trying to help his father's mission, so it's not unreasonable to assume that at some point in the games, Michael could have been there doing the same thing, listening to the same pre-recorded messages after Mike Schmidt had moved on. So, does it make more logical sense? Definitely. Does it make things more confusing? Also, definitely. Does it make things more satisfying? Definitely not. Technically, Michael would have the same motivations as he always did. He ends up being a pawn in his dad's schemes, but after finding out the truth, he vows to make things right and immediately finds a job for a Freddy's that shouldn't exist, knowing his dad will be drawn there, and then helps Henry end it all. The challenge is that it feels like a speed run. He goes straight from being tortured by his dad to finding out the secret to ending it all. Our previous timelines meant he had build-up, time to methodically work against William and figure out how exactly to help the children's souls. But this way, while logical, would mean it all happens within the space of a single year, and his revenge/redemption is very quickly paid off. Although, looking at the pace of the movies, maybe that's what Scott's going for. And speaking of the movies, Mike Schmidt being a separate character works there and feels satisfying because we get to know him. We know what drives him, but in the games, we know nothing about him. All of what I've suggested is essentially just inference from the movies, and that doesn't feel great because we want to feel like this character and their journey matters. Although I think it does matter, just maybe less for the character and more so for us. The eras of FNAF.
It doesn't feel satisfying because you're trying to have just it's Mike Schmidt, Jeremy Fitzgerald, Fritz Smith, and the guard in FNAF 3. Those guys don't matter as much as you want them to, as we want them to. Does that make sense? Because like it just feels like he is trying, like Tom is trying to make a narrative with people that aren't developed at all, instead of actually figuring out what the story the games are trying to tell. I've said this. I think I've said this a few times. If not, I'm going to say it now. Games 1, 2, and 3 don't actually matter from a gameplay. Like, the gameplay does not matter because all of the story is being hidden and stuff like that. Like, you don't need to know about. You like Mike Schmidt, Jeremy Fitzgerald, Fritz Smith, the FNAF 3 guard. They don't matter because the story that is being told is in the 8-bit minigames, or it's in a flashing newspaper that flips every 2 seconds or something like that. Like, the first 3 games are about the puppet and the spirits and trying to free them, and how the killer ends up getting his comeuppance and becomes this whole monster thing that we see with Springtrap and stuff like that. And so, trying to give guards that have no character development in the games a character, like a narrative importance other than they're just guards that are doing their jobs, is just not something that's making sense. Like, that is why it's not satisfying, because you're trying to add stuff that isn't really there. Like, it's speculative. You're trying to make stuff up to fill in cracks when all you just need to do is, like, keep looking. If that does that make sense? Like, once again, no hate to them, but it just feels like they're trying to make it just feels like they're making stuff up rather than actively like, instead of like putting pieces together, they're making new pieces. And it's really, and once again, I've said this in the John FNAF theory, it really takes me out of enjoying this part of FNAF. Like, it's not, it makes it not fun for me when we're seeing, then when it's like, okay, well, this entire theory was wrong and these are 2 separate characters. Great, but that means their story is still the same thing, they're just different people. And I'm like, no, why that doesn't make sense. And like, you can fully say that Mike, like, Sister Location could happen closer to FNAF 3 and Pizzeria Simulator. Like, that's fine. Sister Location, the only part, honestly, Sister Location doesn't matter from a lore standpoint. It depends on what story is being told. If it's about the Aftons, then Michael Afton matters, and Elizabeth Afton matter. Like, they only matter because they're introduced, not because they're relevant to the story. Because all that happens is they just burn. Like, the Afton family goes away. But like, Purple Guy and the spirits, like, those are, and Henry, even though game theory seems to just hate giving Henry any lore relevance, it's like, there's pieces there that matter. And they're just trying to make it about the Afton family. And once again, like, oh, we were wrong about this. Let's try to piece things together so we're still right. So we're right in a different way. Rather than, oh, we were completely wrong. Let's take a full step back and rework it so it makes sense to what is there and not what we are working on. It's just one of the,
Up until now have been essentially broken down like this: Secret of the Mimic, or the Edwin era, FNAF 1 to 7, the Afton era, and Help Wanted onwards, the Mimic era. This, what we've been talking about, puts a divide in the middle of the Afton era as we currently know it. But yes, I think that actually makes things...
Which is what I have done. Which is what I've specifically talked about. Where there is the Ralph arc, 1, 2, and 3. There is the Silver Eyes arc, 4 and 5 in the books, and then there is the Afton era, Sister Location Simulator, and then Ultimate Custom Night. Like there's a divide.
Is clearer. Even though Mike Schmidt may not be important to the actual plot, what is important is what we learn in those games. We learn about the missing children's incident. We learn about Charlie being killed outside. And we learn about William Afton being spring-locked in the back room. The first 3 games, which were initially the only game Scott was going to make, were teaching us about William's crimes.
Yes!
This was the William era of the story. It wasn't for us to know Mike or care about his story. It was to get us invested in in this villain and what he did. And by making us nothing more than a name, no face, no voice lines, it allowed us to sit in that chair, in that office, and witness it all firsthand. To become part of the ghost story. We became Mike Schmidt, a random guy who stumbled upon this place and this game and sat through 5 nights despite it scaring the heck out of us. Then, when the sequels happened, we went back because we felt the intrigue to learn more. And it felt good when we finally beat Springtrap because it felt like we'd ended this horrible man's reign of terror. We did that. But that novelty admittedly only lasts for so long, which allowed the story to be followed by the Michael era, where the story shifts from being a spooky first-person mystery into a character-driven one. We go beyond William's crimes and into William the man, William the father. We learn about his 3 kids, David in FNAF 4, Elizabeth in Sister Location, and throughout it all, we see what it was like to be a child of William through the eyes of Michael. This makes you hate the man even more because not only was he a monster who committed awful crimes, he was a monster towards his own children, seeing them as nothing more than tools in his experiments, which leads us to cheering on Michael as he finally wins against his old man, where we then get to see him tortured for all eternity. We want so desperately for this story to be this big overarching idea, with every character being important to the plot. We're very guilty of that on this channel, to say the least, because it's what feels most satisfying. But actually, we might be being shown that sometimes a character is just a character, a means to an end, a way to take us, the audience, on a journey so that we can learn about the things that matter for that moment.
Sometimes a story is just a story.
It also means that characters can stop being important. Right now, the story is no longer really about William or Henry, it's about Edwin and the Mimic. We can't be afraid of letting go of characters or letting new ones come in, even if it's just for a short while. I guess sometimes you just need a Jeremy or a Mike to do something to help things progress.
100%.
But, hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
World premiere on Game Theory.
Who caused the bite of 83?
What? Thank you, Tom. I ignore that whole little rant that I did right before you saved it. No, yeah, it only took Game Theory 8 years to fix their timeline, but they did it, and I'm really happy about that. No, I once again, as cynical and pessimistic and offensing as I am about these theories as I watch them, I have nothing against them, and I feel like just what he just did, like, it just summed it up, and I hope what the theory that he made right before that isn't still standing, because we can totally have at the end, like, oh, it's divided up. Not every single thing is meant to be important. We're supposed to let go of characters. We're supposed to move on and learn stuff instead of just holding on to make it a whole overarching thing. I hope that's the part of the theory that they stick with, and that us as a community can hang on to and go off of like, oh, they're separate characters. Mike Schmidt doesn't matter. Jeremy Fitzgerald doesn't matter. Like, these guys don't matter. What matters is the story that's trying to be told in the games. And I really hope that keeps being pressed on and helps us develop stuff and solve the lore, because like it's literally been 8 years and we're still trying to solve it. But I think we're nearing. I think thankfully with the 3rd movie, when that comes out, I think we will finally get to the end of that phase of lore hunting, where we finally get to a point where it's like, yeah, this is the story. We were wrong about this. We fixed it. This is what we have now. And I think we can all be satisfied with it when that movie comes out. Or if Scott just leaks a PDF of the entire lore. Worth a shot. But yeah, nope, that was our game theory reaction to this theory. Nothing against them. Tom's awesome. They work really hard, even if they love rage baiting me every other second. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or have any comments or anything you want me to know or want me to react to, let me know in the comments. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!